All right, today we're diving deep into the story of a dinosaur that's frankly pretty incredible. We're talking about a predator that ruled a world that we can barely even picture, a world that was found in a place nobody ever expected. And believe me, this animal completely rewrote the book on the Jurassic period.
So let's just start with the biggest puzzle of all. When you think of Antarctica, what comes to mind? Ice, snow, a frozen wasteland, right? So finding a big, meat-eating dinosaur there, it just seems impossible. It doesn't compute. How in the world could a creature like that survive in a place we think of as a permanent deep freeze?
Well, to crack this puzzle, we have to do a little time traveling. Let's wind the clock back about 190 million years. You see, back in the early Jurassic, the Earth looked nothing like it does today. Antarctica wasn't this lonely, frozen continent at the bottom of the world. Nope. It was actually part of the massive supercontinent Gondwana, and it was located a whole lot farther north. It was a temperate, lush world, totally free of the massive ice caps that bury it today. Okay, so our investigation is going to start right at the scene of the crime, so to speak. We're heading to one of the most remote, most hostile places on our planet where this dinosaur's incredible story was literally chipped out of the frozen rock. You know, finding this thing wasn't a walk in the park. It was this monumental effort that took years. It all kicked off back in 1990 when a geologist named David Elliott was out on Mount Kilpatrick and just stumbled upon these fossil-bearing rocks. He knew he had something big. So the very next year, a team led by paleontologist William Hammer went back to begin the incredibly difficult work of excavating it, which finally led to it getting its official name, Cryolophosaurus ellii, in 1994. And when I say difficult, I am not kidding. The spot where they found these bones was at a staggering altitude of 4,000 meters. That's over 13,000 feet up, in the Trans-Antarctic Mountains. And it was about 640 kilometers, or 400 miles, from where the South Pole is today. I mean, just imagine the logistics. Getting a team and all that equipment up there is a massive challenge in itself. So you can see why this was such a huge deal. This wasn't just some other fossil find. This was a landmark discovery. It was the very first carnivorous dinosaur ever found on the entire continent of Antarctica. And that one skeleton just shattered all the old ideas, proving that these big predators had a truly global reach, even into the polar regions of their world. So what in the world did they actually pull out of that mountain? Well, they found a creature that was, for its time, impressively big. But more than that, it had one of the most bizarre, most distinctive features of any dinosaur we know of. Its official scientific name, Cryolophosaurus, literally translates to frozen crested lizard. Pretty fitting, right? A nod to where it was found and its most famous feature. But as you can imagine, scientists have a sense of humor, and it quickly got a way more famous nickname, Elvisaurus, all thanks to this spectacular pompadour-style crest on its head. And what makes this crest so weird isn't just that it exists, it's the way it's positioned. You know, a lot of other theropods, like Dilophosaurus, they had crests that ran from front to back along their snouts. But Cryolophosaurus, totally different. Its crest shot straight up, vertically, from just above its eyes, and then it fanned out from side to side. Seriously, we've never found anything else quite like it. Now, this delicate, fancy crest, it wasn't a weapon. It was way too thin and fragile to be used in a fight. So what was it for? Well, scientists are pretty sure it was a display structure. It's a textbook example of what we call sexual selection. You can think of it like a peacock's tail. It's basically a giant biological billboard meant to communicate with others of its kind, to attract mates, and to maybe intimidate rivals without ever having to come to blows. It's a way of saying, hey, look at me. I'm so healthy I can afford to grow this ridiculous ornament. But that absolutely bizarre crest, believe it or not, that wasn't the only puzzle this dinosaur threw at us. Trying to figure out where Cryolophosaurus fits on the dinosaur family tree, well, that has been a genuine scientific detective story for paleontologists. Okay, so here's the core of the mystery. The skeleton of Cryolophosaurus is, well, it's a confusing mashup of old and new traits. Its skull has features that look super advanced for the early Jurassic, almost like they belong on a predator that lived millions of years later. But then you look at the rest of its body, especially bones like the femur, and they look much more primitive, a lot like its earlier ancestors. It's a real evolutionary chimera. And because of this confusing mix of features, its spot on the family tree has bounced all over the place. I mean, look at this. When it was first described back in '94, that advanced skull made scientists think it was an early Tetnaran. That's the big group that later gave us giants like Allosaurus and T-Rex. But then, later studies in 2007 suggested, no, it's actually closer to the more primitive Dilophosaurids, and the debate keeps evolving. It just goes to show you what a weird and wonderfully important animal this really was. But here's the thing. This whole evolutionary puzzle is exactly what makes Cryolophosaurus so incredibly important. It's like a snapshot of a critical moment in time. It captures that transition when early, smaller predatory dinosaurs were just starting to take those first evolutionary steps towards becoming the colossal super predators that would one day rule the world. All right, let's move on from the bones and try to reconstruct the world this polar king actually lived in. Because let me tell you, it was a world just teeming with life and totally, completely alien compared to the Antarctica that we know today. Yeah, just forget the ice sheets completely. The coast of Antarctica in the early Jurassic was this cool, temperate, and humid place. It would have had really strong seasons, including long, dark winters for sure, but it was covered in lush forests of conifers, ferns, a whole bunch of plant life. The best comparison for what it might have looked like is probably the forests of southern Chile today. So, in this green, polar world, Cryolophosaurus was at the top of the food chain. Its main course was probably large herbivores, like the sauropodomorph Glacialsaurus. But it looks like it wasn't a picky eater. We have evidence it also snacked on little mammal relatives called Tridiolodons. And then, there's the really scandalous part of its diet. It seems it ate its own kind.
And we know this because the evidence is literally written on the original bones, what scientists call the holotype. That main skeleton actually has bite marks on it, and scattered around the remains, they found shed teeth from a younger, smaller Cryolophosaurus. Now, the most likely story here is a pretty grim one. After the big adult died, a youngster came across the carcass and took advantage of a free, easy meal. Survival is tough. Okay, so thinking about this animal living in a cool climate with cold, dark winters, that brings up a really important question that paleontologists are always asking about dinosaurs like this one. Did it have feathers?
Now, to be clear, we have not found any fossilized feathers with Cryolophosaurus, but the scientific reasoning here is really strong. We're pretty certain that the very first feathers didn't evolve for flight, they evolved for insulation, to keep warm. So when you have an animal like this living in a cool, temperate climate, and it's closely related to other theropods that we know had feathers, well, it's very, very likely that it had some kind of simple, insulating coat of feathers to help it survive those chilly polar winters. So when you boil it all down, the importance of Cryolophosaurus is really twofold. First, it gives us this absolutely incredible window into a rich, complex polar ecosystem that has completely vanished from the Earth. And second, it captures this pivotal moment in evolution, showing us how predatory dinosaurs first started to get big. And all of that just leaves you to wonder, doesn't it? As our own world changes and the ancient ice of Antarctica continues to melt and reveal its secrets, what other incredible creatures and what other entire lost worlds are still buried down there, just waiting for us to find them?